Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Freely Nourished, the podcast that teaches you to break the cycle of dieting by teaching you to nourish your body well. I am your host, Erin Casey, registered dietitian and owner of New You Nutrition Counseling. And today I have a really fun topic for you. So, as we are getting into summer, at least at the time that I am recording this podcast, it is getting close to summertime. And some of us struggle with hydration. Really year round, but particularly during those summertime months. So here today, I've got some hydration hacks to keep you nice and hydrated during the summer months, but also just kind of things to carry with you year round if you are somebody who kind of just struggles a little bit to get that water intake to where it should be. Um, Couple of announcements before we get started. So, I have just launched my Healthy Eating for Busy People Masterclass. It is now available. You can get it on my website. I will also link it in the show notes here. That has nothing to do with hydration, but that is for anyone who um, struggles to eat well, largely because you have a busy or a chaotic lifestyle. Now, that can be for a number of reasons, right? It can be that you just have a really heavy work schedule. It can be that your work schedule, so for example, if you work in healthcare and like your schedule is just chaotic or inconsistent, maybe you have kids and you are constantly on the go, particularly during the summer, right? They have busy bodies. Or, if you're traveling on vacations, things like that, or you travel for work frequently and just, something about your life is inconsistent that you struggle to get yourself into a rhythm, even though you have a pretty sound idea of what healthy eating looks like. The cost is $25, so it's very, very affordable. It is a 1 hour master class, so you get a 1 hour recording plus the PowerPoint for support. You can stop it and start it whenever you want, and you also get a detailed workbook. I think it's about 5, 6 pages, something like that, of just tips and tricks and things to kind of help keep you on track and kind of take some of the lessons that you're going to learn in the master class to the next level. Really, really great value for what you're getting. It will kind of walk you through some basics of meal planning, but then largely it is just about how to get that step from knowing what to eat to the execution of it in the context of a busy schedule. So you're going to come away from it knowing you know, some different strategies for planning your meals, whether you are traveling, whether you are just like on the go. It's going to be about kind of finding those pockets of time that you can plan and strategize, and then using that to your advantage for the rest of the time when you were just kind of all over the place. Great value. So definitely check that out on the website. Like I said, I'll link it below as well. And then we also still have the Consistency Counts Meal Planning Made Easy digital course. That one is a little bit more involved. It is about 3 hours worth of recording. Again, these are both completely digital offerings. So you have the ability to stop and start them whenever you want. You also get a workbook with that digital course. You just get more recording time and just more content. That one is structured a little bit more on the basics of kind of how to pull your meal together. So I find a lot of times with my patients, particularly those who have been kind of inundated with diet culture, like various types of restrictions. They were told, don't eat this, don't eat that, that kind of thing. And then they're kind of left with, okay, I know that a lot of that is bogus, but what do I actually eat? Right. And that's kind of what this course is designed to answer is kind of, okay, one, what should you be eating? How do you pull together kind of structured meals? And it gives you basically a flexible plan to follow. So it's a plan, but the plan you can kind of flux to how your day to day kind of tends to ebb and flow. So you come away with it with, again, lots of planning strategies of kind of how to capitalize the time that you do have to plan and prepare meals, and then kind of just using that to set yourself up for success for the times when you don't have time to plan and prepare meals. So again, really great content. The cost of that one is $50 just because you are getting more content, but both really great options if you are someone who you were curious about or interested in, one-on-one counseling, but either, whether you just can't make the time commitment right now, or maybe the cost is a bit of a burden for you. These are much more affordable options that still get you a lot of the key points that I hit with most of my clients in their early weeks. So you're still getting a lot of really good education. And then of course you do have access to me for questions and things like that. So definitely utilize those two things if you are listening to this and you're kind of like, like Erin has lots of great information, but I just don't know like where to start. These are really good places to start. And then of course, if you do decide that you want to continue with one-on-one counseling, even after you've taken one of those courses, I apply that cost to the cost of your counseling. So, basically if you take the course and you decide that, hey, this isn't enough, you have not wasted your money and now you have to spend more. You have just kind of made a deposit towards your first session. So definitely check those out if that is something that interests you. And by all means, reach out to me if you have questions about them. Okay, so let's get rolling into hydration. So like I said, we're heading into summer. It is a time when we tend to be outside more. We are generally sweating more. It is warm. And hydration can definitely be an issue. And for some of us, hydration is a general issue that we face every day because we just are not big water drinkers or not big, we just don't get thirsty, things like that. So I always like to give it a little bit of a push this time of year, but these are strategies you can use any time of the year. So the first thing I like to start with is that how much water do you actually need? Right? That's a really good place to start. So most adults need about half of their body weight in ounces of water per day. So if you weigh about 200 pounds, you need about 100 ounces of water. That is right about, it's a little bit shy of a gallon. So I think a gallon is 120 ounces. So I think there's kind of this big misconception out there with this, the sale of those like big gallon-sized water bottles and things like that, that there's nothing wrong with those. There's nothing wrong with drinking a gallon of water a day, but you certainly don't have to. Or at least you don't have to unless you weigh over 240 pounds. So, just kind of keep that in mind that your body weight divided in half, that's the amount you need in ounces. So to that end, also kind of consider where you are. I'm always a big advocate of people taking kind of small steps to get to where they want. So let's say your goal is that 100 ounces, but right now you're at like 30, right? Trying to push for 60 extra ounces every single day is likely not one, it's not going to feel good. That's a lot of extra water kind of overnight. And two, it's going to be hard, right? It's going to be really hard and probably somewhat defeating. So take graduated steps, right? So kind of take into account, okay, how much, water. And when I say water, it doesn't necessarily have to be water, right? Anything that is like water, juice, milk, even like diet soda and stuff like that, in my opinion, still counts. I do draw the line at about coffee. Coffee is enough of a diuretic that in my opinion, I wouldn't count it towards your fluid goals. Same goes for like energy drinks and things like that. Other than that though, it can be really any other fluid. And it doesn't have to be just plain water, which we'll talk about in a second. But anyway, if you are, let's say you're at 30 ish ounces and you're trying to get to 100. Well, I wouldn't try to get to 100 ounces overnight, right? I would try to, okay, well, right now I'm at 30. Let me try to get to 50 over the next week, right? So that's just adding another 20 ounces, which is kind of one of those like, bigger water bottles per day, right? And even if that just means at like the end of the night, you're chugging that extra water bottle, that's getting your body adapted to it. And then, okay, the next week, maybe you're going for 75, right? So again, you're adding about, 15 to 20 ounces per day throughout the course of a week. And then eventually you get yourself up to that 100 ounces, but you don't have to go from, you don't have to make big strides. If you are somebody who typically drinks, I don't know, 80 ounces of fluid per day and you know that you should be getting 100, well, that's less of a jump, right? So that's just kind of being a little bit more intentional. In terms of how to get it in or how to know how much, having either like a water, the water bottles that are just the purified water bottles, those are typically 16 ounces. And sodas and things like that are typically anywhere from like 16 to 20, and it should tell you on the bottle what size it is. You can also, I'm a big fan of graduated bottles that have some type of marking on them to tell you how much water you're getting. So my water bottle has 32 ounces and it has a little marker right at 30, and you just kind of know if you fill it to the top that you're getting 32. So that way I know, okay, if I keep this at my desk and I drink through two of them throughout the course of my day, well, then I know, okay, I've got about 64 ounces in that setting, right? And then I usually have another one at least at the gym. And then I drink more water kind of throughout the night. So I know that I'm kind of meeting those needs. But kind of just trying to keep things in vessels that are labeled if you can, so that way you kind of get an idea as to how much. Another strategy a lot of people like is that they buy a super cute water bottle that they kind of like looking at, and then it has these motivational sayings and things like that on it. That can be really helpful, right? Because it's a visual reminder of like, I need to drink water, right? And that's where those gallon size or even half gallon size water bottles can be really helpful. I do think sometimes the gallon size ones are a little bit, they're just kind of bulky to lug around, right? There's nothing wrong with it. I know plenty of people who like work at a desk job and like they just kind of have their water bottle. It lives at work. It just stays there and they let it sit on their desk and they drink on it throughout the day. And again, that reminder factor, that visual, like having it sitting in front of them and saying, oh, like I'm only at so much, and it's already noon. I need to pick up the pace a little bit. So it can definitely be helpful in that sense. That said, if you're carrying it around, it can be a little bit of a hassle. But get yourself something that kind of gives you information in terms of how much water you're actually drinking. Now, how do we, some people like, yep, that water bottle can sit there all day long, right? It can sit there and I will stare right back at it because I just have no desire to drink water, or like I'm not thirsty, or I just don't think about it, or I'm busy, what have you. So for those people, I recommend they sell them on Amazon, but I've also seen them at places like TJ Maxx or Marshalls. They're little blinkers. And you just like, if you type into Amazon, just type in water bottle reminder, they'll pop up, and they're little blinkers, they're little sticker guys that you just kind of stick on your water bottle. And there's a switch in the back that you turn it on and turn it off, and it blinks and it buzzes once an hour. And that just reminds you to drink water. It doesn't like go on and on forever until you like turn it off. It's just kind of like if you have a smartwatch that like reminds you to stand up once an hour, it's kind of the same thing. So it just kind of, gives you a little buzz like, hey, they have some that buzz, some that light up. And I believe most of them, you have like a setting that you can pick one or the other. So if you need something to actually like push you to remind you, those can be helpful and they will stick on the water bottle. If you are someone who maybe you are not right next to your water, like let's say you don't work at a desk all day long, and you need something like your watch to remind you to stand, you can actually set reminders on your phone. And that will connect to your watch, or you can set them on just old school on your phone. Just have a set reminder. You can do that as a set alarm. There are definitely apps that you can use that will remind you to drink water. There are apps that you can use to track it too, to kind of keep yourself accountable. Things like that. MyFitnessPal will let you set hydration reminders and things like that. So, definitely utilize technology to your advantage. If you are not someone who sits at a desk, and having a buzzer on a water bottle that you are not in front of will not help you, get yourself either just set an alarm on your watch and, label it water, and do it, a mid-morning, a noon, and a mid-afternoon or something like that to remind you to drink water throughout the day. Or, you can have a smartwatch, an app that tracks it for you, anything like that. Let's see. The other thing you can do is add flavor to your water. So a lot of people, they're in the presence of water, and they probably would be inclined to drink it, but they just don't particularly care for the taste. And like I said earlier, it doesn't have to be just water. What we're going for ultimately is fluid. So things like juice, soda, milk, things like that do count towards your fluid goals. The reason why we push water so much over those other things is just simply because water is giving you you hydration without giving you any excess calories. So things like juice and soda, if it has regular sugar in it, give you quite a bit of extra calories that you may or may not want. Sometimes when we're thinking, or even sports drinks can fall in that category too. Sometimes those sugars can serve a purpose, right? If you are, having a hypoglycemic episode, if you are in the middle of an endurance event and you need those sugars to kind of refuel yourself, like that is okay. Those are there for a purpose. But most of us just kind of going about our lives, we don't need that. We just need the water component to it. That said, if you don't love the taste of water, you can definitely flavor it. You don't have to, you can do fruit infusion. So a lot of times if you are home, I will recommend getting a big pitcher and throwing in kind of whatever kind of fruit or cucumbers or lemon or any combination of those things that you like to give it a little bit of extra flavor. What I like to do, particularly in the summer when fruit is a little bit more abundant and maybe you're buying fruit, but not quite eating all of it. Like before it goes bad, throw it in a big pitcher of water and let it kind of sit there. It should stay good for 3 or 4 days. I wouldn't trust it much beyond that. And obviously if you see stuff kind of looking like it's growing in there, then we throw it away. But I would say 2 to 3 days is probably what you'll get out of it. But if you're going to be drinking the amount of water that you should be able to go through that pitcher in no time. So any type of fruit that you enjoy. They also sell the pitchers that have kind of the little filters in the middle, or even water bottles that have the little filters in the middle that you can put kind of whatever you like throughout the day. And then some of the water bottles, you can carry them with you. Other ones, you would just put it in the fridge. But that's one way to flavor your water. The other is you can definitely use the Crystal Light packets, or any, store brand equivalent of them. They do have sucralose in them, but sucralose is not harmful. I would much rather you drink the water that has whatever is in the Crystal Light flavoring than not drink it at all. So I'm 100% okay with that. The other thing, those little like squirt bottles of things that you can add into it, those are perfectly fine too. So I think, any way you want to flavor that water, that's perfectly fine. I will say that there is an advantage to, like I said, soda and stuff like that does count. But the carbonation does change the way your body utilizes it. So I would recommend that, let's say you need 100 ounces of fluid per day, that I would say about a third of that can come from carbonated beverages. And that can be soda, but it can also be seltzer water, things like that. You want less than a third of that. So less than 30 ounces coming from a carbonated beverage and the rest coming from some uncarbonated source. It could still be juice, it could still be milk, but it could still be tea. But we don't want to have more than a third of it coming from that carbonated source, just because that carbonation is a little bit tough on your stomach and it just kind of changes the way your body handles the fluid. So I will say that, but other than that, any of the flavor packets and things like that, that all counts straight as water would. Let's see, to the point of flavor packets, during the summer months, particularly if you are someone who is really active or if you're out doing yard work and things like that, hydration is important. So the fluid intake is important, but it also can sometimes actually go beyond that. And that is something that I think a lot of people can get themselves into a dangerous situation and not know it. And that is because when we sweat, we lose water, but we also lose electrolytes. So we lose things like sodium and potassium. I know that like coconut water has kind of made this surge of popularity, and it is really as kind of like a natural alternative to, traditional like sports drinks and things like that, like Gatorade, Powerade, etc. And it does, coconut water is very rich in potassium. The problem is it is not rich in sodium, and you are more likely to suffer from hyponatremia, which is low sodium content, than hypokalemia, which is low potassium content. So very often I see it a lot in athletes, particularly athletes that are out doing like 2-a-days or something like that in the late summer, may or may not be, hydrating the way that they should be, may or may not be drinking. But if you are trying to replenish electrolytes, you want to make sure that you are getting that sodium component too. in my personal opinion, there is nothing wrong with sports drinks. I have no problem with Gatorade, Powerade, anything like that. There's no, in my opinion, there's no additives or dyes or anything in there that is unsafe to drink. And if you are someone who is worried about electrolytes, or you've been out and you've been sweating for a really long period of time, I highly recommend that you replenish your fluids with something that does contain both electrolytes, both sodium and potassium. Gatorade, sports drinks, or things like that are okay. You can do it with coconut water, but you need to add a salt component. Now you can eat the salt, right? So you can do it with like some saltine crackers or pretzels or something like that. That's kind of high, chips, anything like that. That's high in sodium as well. Some people actually add salt directly to the coconut water. I don't want to know what that tastes like, but people do it, and nutritionally it does fit. So that is perfectly okay. The other thing you can do is get packets. So Gatorade, Powerade, and like all of the knockoff store brands make like little packets of things that you could. So if you don't want to buy a whole big case of Gatorade and you're not necessarily going to drink it, you can buy the packets. And this is what I do very often. You can definitely get like Propel, Gatorade, Powerade, all of those things. There's store brands that make the same thing. That all are basically, you just add it to whatever water you normally have on hand. There's also Nuun, N-U-U-N, and I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but as a runner, they are a lifesaver. They have a really good balance of electrolytes without the extra sugar. So to me, the extra sugar sometimes upsets my stomach, especially if I'm out in the heat. So getting something that's lower sugar, again, now Gatorade and Powerade and all of those things make like low sugar options. But kind of when Nuun first hit the market, they didn't. So they were kind of the only sugar-free option. But any of those types of packets are good options for you. Things to kind of assess whether or not you're in trouble. One that people are really familiar with is the color of your urine, right? We want that really pale yellow urine. If your urine is dark, if you don't have a large volume of urine, definitely it's time to start pushing some fluids. And another way you can tell is by skin turgor. So if you take your hand, I'll kind of hold it up for you guys here. And if you pinch your skin up, see how my skin went right back down? That means that my skin is very elastic, which means that it's well hydrated. As you are getting dehydrated, basically the cells in your skin start to lose their water. What would happen is that pinched up amount would actually stay elevated for a period of time and take some time to drop back down. So that can be a really good sign if you don't necessarily have to urinate or haven't urinated frequently or just didn't pay attention to what color it was. That could be a helpful way to tell what is, whether or not you're hydrated, dehydrated, kind of need to pay attention to it, etc. So yeah, those are those. Oh, and the last tip, sorry, I thought I was done, but I'm not. My last tip, and this is really for kind of any time of year, if you were just somebody who really struggles to get water, a lot of times that struggle comes kind of during the bulk of your workday because you just kind of don't think about it. So what I usually recommend is make a point to drink 16 to 20 ounces. So that's like 2 to 3 glasses of water. And we're talking, standard glasses. So this is a Tervis. This is big. This guy's probably about 20 ounces in and of itself. Or one of those like bigger bottles of pop, again, 20 ounces. So try to drink at least 16 to 20 ounces with each meal. Some people like to chug 8 before and 8 after, and like that's how they do it. Some people just gotta get a big cup and make sure that cup is gone by the end of their meal. However you want to do it, but 16 to 20 ounces per meal, that's going to get you about 60 or so ounces of fluid throughout the day. And then the rest, if you need more, you can kind of find your way to kind of waffle in between. But kind of really focusing in on a time when you're already eating, right? Getting the fluid in can be helpful there too. So that's all I have for you guys. I hope this helps. Let me know what, if any, hydration questions you have in the comments. And like I said, if you are someone who's interested in nutrition counseling and you want more information on it, certainly check out my website, www.nuyunutrition.com. We have lots of great offerings. There's lots of free downloadable resources for you there as well. And like I said, if you think one-on-one counseling just like isn't what you need right now, or it's not what you have time for, or not what you can afford, definitely check out our digital offerings. There's a lot of value there for you as well, both in that meal planning made easy course, which is a little bit longer and a little bit more in depth, as well as the healthy eating for busy people, which I think is just something that so many of my patients struggle with. So that's why I made a whole course about it. As always, any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great and nourished day, and I will see you next week.